Today's daf is daf on Aleph. We're coming to the end of this technical sugi here about the four different formats of learning, and each one of them using one of the other formats or its own format to teach something else. So the last one we're up to is binyanav. Binyanav means a similarity. It's logic. Bamem matzinu. Since they're very similar and you have certain set of laws over there, can we apply the same set of laws over here? But now the Gemara is going to ask, so we're up to binyanav. Can a binyanav learn through a binyanav, through a gzer shabbat, through a kal v'chaymer, and through a hekesh? Says the Gemara. 5 lines on top of the page, daf nun aleph, amud aleph. Davar halamed bebinyan something that you derived through a binyanav. Ma'u sheyilmed behekesh. Can it teach now something else? Ma'u sheyilamed behekesh. Can it teach now through a hekesh, or through a gzer shabbat, or through a kal v'chaymer, or through a binyanav? Says the Gemara, I don't know. One of the 4 questions I can answer you. Maybe a binyan av via binyan av works. The medium of binyan av. How? Where do you see that? Very interesting concept. You actually wonder what the Havmin was in the first place, as we'll see. Why do we say that lon? If let's say if the dam stayed overnight, in other words, dam becomes possible after shkiyas hachama. Right, that's where we learn mincha from. We'll see later. So dam becomes possible after shkiyas hachama. What happens is the blood stayed overnight, and then you placed it on the mizbeach. And we learned before a concept im alu lo yardin. Most things, if you go on the mizbeach, you don't take them down. So what happens if this blood was overnight and you put it on mizbeach? Is kosher. It's all right. Why? Because you find a precedent and other things that if it stays overnight, it's kosher here also as well. Where do you find a precedent? Because shaharei lon be'emurin kosher. Because if it stayed overnight by the fats and then you put it on the mizbeach by mistake, it's kosher. Even though the fats is possible, but it's kosher. Yeah. And how do you know that? So that's a binyan. So what did we do so far? We made amendments. We made a binyan av. We said, well, just like a murin overnight is possible, and yet you put him in his it stays there. It's the same way with blood. Overnight is possible, but you put him in his it's kosher. Okay, that's amendment. No, then the next question is, murin kosher. How do you know that? How you can know that if fats, if you left overnight, you put him in his it's kosher. You know what? How do you lumber basar? Kosher. Where do you find that? A carbon shlamim. A carbon shlamim, if it stayed overnight, is kosher. Why? Because of chatchila. You have 2 days and 1 night to eat it. So since we find a precedent when it comes to basar, that it's kosher, that the person's consumption is kosher because it's 2 days and a night. So therefore, even if it's disqualified and you put him as be'ech, it's kosher. So what are we doing here? We're doing a mematzini versus a mematzini. It is so hard to understand what the Gemara will ask the question. You wonder. That's the din of shlamim, that you eat 2 days and a night. What does it have to do with lon? Where's the b'metzina here? Where's the binyanav here? What's the similarities? Very hard to understand. Anyway, so but what do we see right now at this stage? A mematzina from a mematzina. So now, what about, let's say, in other words, all of these things that we're going to say, but the evidence, when you put them as beich, it's all right, as long as we find a precedent somewhere else that in this particular psul, there's a heter somewhere. So if there's somewhere out there in the world a heter on this psul, we're going to say, okay, for Zonas Be'ach, leave it there. But if you cannot find any heter for this particular psul anywhere, in any circumstance, then we're not going to leave it on Mizbeach. So we continue. What about Yoitze? If you took it out of the Beis HaMikdash, what happened? Then you brought it in and you put it on Mizbeach. It's possible, obviously. In what happens then? Oil the Yoitze kosher b'bama in the times of the Bamas. There's no Yoitze everywhere. Not just was kosher. So therefore, there's you took it away from the Mizbeach. It was all kosher. The Bama is all kosher. So therefore, we have an exception again there. Tomei. What happens if, let's say, the carbon becomes Tomei? If you put on the bed by mistake, why do you leave it? We have the concept of tumah sometimes being suspended. If it's avodas tzibur, tumah huter b'tzibur. Again, so since this particular psul, there is a circumstance where it's mutter, we're going to be lenient. What about chutzlas manoi? That is interesting. What about chutzlas manoi? If you had in mind when you shechted whatever it is that you're going to eat it, chutzlas manoi, which is pigul and it's possible, and what happens if you put it on the mizbech, part of the mizbech? Because it was effective. It made it pigul. So it wasn't, so the zik itself, it's not what you wanted your outcome, but it did something. So because it did something, if you put them in Be'ech, it's kosher. It met the halacha of pigul. So it did something. So this has been just like when you bring the blood, it's mati the flesh. In this case, the blood did something else, but it did something. So therefore, if you put on mizbech, lo yodu. Chutz l'mekayme. What about you had a machutz l'mekayme? Hoyel v'hukish l'chutz's manoi, because that's hukish to chutz's manoi. It's the same thing, chutz l'mekayme, chutz's manoi, and therefore the same thing there as well. Once you put it in. What about shekiblu psulin? What about a kohen who was puzzle, received the blood? Or v'zarka, a kohen who's puzzle, sprinkle the blood. Why, if that you took that blood and you put it in his bed, but the evid or the fats, you leave it there? Because Hana Psulim, we're talking about only those kind of psulim, the chazul la'avodah tzibur. We're talking about psulim that, for example, a kohen tamei, again, hutzah b'tzibur, whatever it is. So there are cases where this psul is not a psul, therefore we leave it there. Okay, but what do we? The bottom line from the first part of this bracket, we're not a binyan of from a binyan of. We said, if lon by dam because lon by mudim, and lon by mudim because lon by basa. So we see two steps. So I don't understand that if you ask, you take the brisa literally. That what? That because you eat a shlamim 2 days and 1 night, therefore if another thing that it's only a day and night and you left it overnight, what does that mean? Well, the answer is you're right. In fact, your whole thing is wrong because Tanim is Titus Oiladiba. We have a pasuk, the whole pasuk where it talks about oil. I'll make the mizbech. Where you learn out whatever is mizbech, let it burn through. It talks about oil. It says Zois Titus Oil. Now this is the Taita of what's coming to tell you Zois Titus Oil. You just told us it didn't. I forgot. If you burn, say mizbech. Riba, something like that. Riba. So really, the Bryce is relying on this pasuk. And he just brings it because the whole Bryce is the language or the syntax of the Bryce is to talk about similarities and we compare this to this, compare this to this. He put it in there as well, but it's not literally a binyan of the binyan of. This is Pasha Pasuk.
We could have said this a page ago. So
it's only a binyan of. So Gemara finishes off. We have no idea. So this is the only one we have no idea. Some of them we had a machlek, some we had a definitive ruling. 1 or 2 of them we had teku. This we have no idea. You have to wonder what the Gemara thought in the beginning. How can you take the religion? What shot was there? I don't know. Anyway, then goes, moving on, we're finished. What do we do with the leftover blood? You pour it down the Yisaid. Now, just remember, the Yisaid was like this. You had you have to always picture in your mind. The west side of the Mizbech, the Maida side of the Mizbech was the Heichel. The Heichel. The north side, the right side, the Tzafan, that's the Azora where they did the Shchita, but Kotche. The left side is the Darim, and then so that we did not do Shchita, only Shlamim and other things. You can do whatever you want. And then the east side is when you enter in. When you're coming from the Ezras Nashim, you're walking up the east side. The east side didn't cover all the sides. It says Pesach Mayed, so therefore that side, the entire side was covered with the Yisrael. What's the Yisrael? Yisrael is, if you remember, learn later on the Gemara, the Mizbech, exactly. It's like a step in. But we call that, sorry?
Ledge.
Or ledge or a base. Yeah, base. But it's like this, then you go in, then you go up 5 amas, then you go in, that's a Seviv, and you go up and so on. We'll see later the whole Machlek is there, how high the Mizbech was. Can't remember, I'm wearing my glasses, but okay, yeah, see. So they have it. We'll have later the whole sugi about how the Mizbech was built and all that. So show that. Okay. Oh, so the Yisod, yes, the entire west side had a Yisod. The entire west side. The south side had a little bit, and the north side had a Yisod, and the east side only a little bit. So 3 of the corners had a Yisod on the bottom. But one corner did not. Which corner? The one that was the furthest in the base of Mikdash, when you went in, the east side and on the south. So the southeastern corner, which is the Draimis Mizrachis, had no Yisaid. Now, in the Kabbanas, you know that a korban chatas you had to sprinkle on every cannon. Every corner you have to sprinkle. But when it came to the oila, you also had to do 4 corners, but you didn't. You sprayed it on 2 diagonally opposite each other, and it splattered across. And we're going to see, but it has to be with as we'll soon see how we learn that, it has to be with the Yisaitis. So the one corner you couldn't do is you couldn't do the southeastern corner, so you couldn't do the diagonally opposite either. You couldn't do the northwestern corner. So where did you do? You did it the southwestern corner, which was the Remis Maravit, which is right opposite the Hechel, but on the left side, and the diagonally across when you walked in on your right side. That's fine. Is I think I just said he had pictures of that.
Yeah, it showed 2 corners.
This one is.
Which side is Mizrach? I'm so confusing.
Mizrach. The Mizrach, this the Mizrach something to do, and opposite side.
Uh-huh. Okay. Fine. So now we're gonna learn all this from Psukim. So let's go. Says the Gemara. First of all, Shei Adam, you have to show in your side. My time of why on Makra. It says in Pasuk. It says in Pasuk that tell Aaron above. What do you call it? It says a Yisai. It says that a Yisai of Mizbech. You should place the blood on the Yisai of the Mizbech. This is by Par Koyim Mashiach. It says that you should put in the Yisai Mizbech, but the wording there it says Yisai HaMizbech Ha'oila. No, but like this. If you remember, the inner karbonis, even though you sprinkled it on the inner mizbeach, the par kayim Mashiach, you sprinkled in the mizbeach, the par yom kippur, you sprinkle the mizbeach, and the seir of yom kippur, you sprinkle the mizbeach, but the par helm davar tzibur, you sprinkled on the mizbeach primi, on the inner mizbeach, but the blood, the leftover, you didn't pour on the inner mizbeach, you poured it in the outer mizbeach. So it said in the pasuk, you should do it on the side mizbeach oila. That outer mizbeach is called mizbeach oila because that's where you brought the oilas. So the outer mizbeach, but then it adds asher pesach oil made. And we know where the mizbeach oil is. It's outside, obviously. So what do you have to say el pesach oil made? Okay, so the Gemara is going to say now. Okay, so we're going to have a few psukim here where we say el mizbeach oila, and each one's coming to teach something. Says the Gemara, my time, so we dashin ahu the paga beresha, the one that you meet first. Now Rashi does not have those words. Ahu paga beresha sounds like it's mainly because of ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. Rashi is not great. It's equivalent from pasuk. It says asher pesach oil moed means the one facing the oil moed. That's all. And in fact, Taisus explains why we need a pasuk for ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. So Taisus gives a very important insight here. Taisus says, you know when ein mavir and ala mitzvahs, which means you shouldn't pass by the mitzvah, go further, do it as soon as possible. Right, so that ein mavir and ala mitzvahs is that you have two mitzvahs in front of you, and the question is which one should you do first? So we say don't bypass the mitzvahs. Don't bypass the mitzvahs. Go to the first mitzvah that's closest to you. But if you only have one mitzvah, and the question is where you're going to do this mitzvah, that's not good with ein mavir and ala mitzvahs. Says Taisus here, and therefore we're trying to establish where should you do the shvicha. So don't tell me because ein mavir al mitzvah do on the Maider side rather than the Mizrach side. There you need a pasuk to tell you where you're trying to create a mitzvah. Where is that mitzvah? Sorry?
So
where's the hechel? Oh, there's the hechel. Okay. In my head, the picture is exactly the opposite. Because the north is over here, the right, over here, the north is the left. It's very confusing, that picture. Because in my head, I got it all straight. 100%. No, but it's good. It's a good picture. Yeah, I'm just saying in my head, I have it the other way around, so I don't want to get confused.
You go in.
Yeah, it's exactly. Why is the picture that way? When you walk in from the Ezra's Noshim, it's the other way around. You come when you come from Ezra's Noshim, the Tzafim is on your right, the Dunim is on your left. Maidav is behind, the other side of the Mizbech. That's the best way to have a picture in your head. So then, this is, imagine I'm the one who's walking in. That's exactly the opposite way. Yeah, but if you're walking here.
Right here, and they acknowledge the different sides. Whatever reason, that.
Turn it. It's okay. This way. That's way. Yeah, there you go.
Okay, you have to turn this way to see it. That's why. Oh, okay. I'm looking at this way. Okay. Fair enough. Okay. Nothing wrong with that. It's wrong with me. You have an image in your mind, it's sort of just easier. But let me just say, the easy way to remember it is imagine you're in the Ezra's Noshim and you're walking inside. Just see what you're facing in your head. So you're facing the Mizbech, and you know that the right side is where you do the Shchitus, that's Sofan, and the left side is where the Kevish is and all that. Just easy way to picture. If you don't picture it in your head, you have to look at it every time. You'll never really.
Yeah, no, thank you.
I'm just saying, stop. Easy way to do it. Okay. Anyway, let's go back to the Gemara. Okay, so one pasuk sorry. Okay, so the first pasuk said Yisrael teaches you, but that's where you do the shvicha. Okay, the next one, Tarabon, we learned. Now we have a few psukim, 3 psukim. We learned it says Yisaid mizbeach ha'oila. So he said you should pour the blood. So we have it by par koyim Mashiach, and we have it by par helem davar tzibur. Yeah. So you go, yes. It says each one of them says you pour the blood and you say mizbeach ha'olah. So the first one is tell you you say mizbeach ha'olah, but you say mizbeach ha'pnimi. You would thought that you should, you sprinkle the blood in mizbeach ha'pnimi. So should you do also the no? Do it on the outside mizbeach. You say mizbeach ha'olah. The second one is to tell you another pasuk. You say mizbeach ha'olah. And I want to tell you, ain't lo you say this is extra now. To tell me that you do it outside, we already know because we're already medama to the Parkay Mashiach. So why did I say it again? To tell you that there is no Yisaid in the Mizbeach HaPnimi. More than that, not only you're going to do it outside, there is no Yisaid in the Pnimi.
Well,
then it says the third time, Yisaid Mizbeach HaOlah. That we learn from here, 10 Yisaid Mizbeach HaOlah. That this Mizbeach HaOlah becomes a Yisaid for any sprinkling, any carbon. No, the pasuk itself is talking about an oila. But now I'm telling you that any carbon you're doing, the shvicha of the sharayim should be on the side, because you wouldn't have known because it's not written anywhere else. So there you have it. Yeah. Okay. And this last one is by the seir of the nasi. The seir of the nasi is different than the other ones where you sprinkle in the inner mizbech. The seir of nasi lechatchila you sprinkle in the outer mizbech. There's the 4 zrikas you do on the outer. The zrikas you do on the outer mizbech. And it's shvich in the outer mizbech, and here's mamish extra. If you're doing the zik in the outer mizbech, as we'll see, the shvich should be in the outer mizbech as well. And yet the Torah said you say you should do mizbech ha'olah to tell you that's not a din only in ha'olah. It's all kabbanis this way. Okay. Oh, yeah, how do you know? Maybe it means mizbech shel ha'olah yehelo yisod. Maybe it means navos that the ha'olah it should be it's only talking about the ha'olah, and that the ha'olah that the outer mizbech is the only one that has the yisod. Yeah. It has it's not coming to teach you shvicha sharayim and so on and so forth. It's coming to tell you that a law about the mizbech. You should know that the mizbech is when you do the zrikas. Forget the shvicha. We're not talking about shvicha now. When you do the zrikas, you know which side. Talk about the oila. The oila you only do. When you do the zrikas, you know which side of the mizbech you should do. The diagonal sides where the yisaid is, and not the side where there's no yisaid. No, it's not talking. It says mizbech oila. Who said we're talking about other kabbanos? Talking about oila. What I need it for already. You do the sharayim and the thing. This is not talking about sharayim. It's talking about the initial spray of the zrikas. Which you do shtayim shein arba. You do 2 diagonal corners. Which diagonal corners? On the corners that have a yisaid on the bottom. Maybe that's what it's coming for. And the Gemara is going to explain every single part of this brayso, including every half a minute. So the Gemara, I just lost the place. Yeah, maybe that's what it's coming for. So Gemara gives 2 answers why we don't need a pasuk for that. You don't need a pasuk to tell me that the zrika has to be on top of the yisaid, because I have a kabel chaymer. I have Rabbi Shmuel's version of the kabel chaymer. I have Rabbi Kiva's version of the kabel chaymer. And the Gemara is going to ask what's the difference. So we'll see in a minute. So the Gemara, Rabbi Shmuel kabel chaymer, ma'adach sharayim, which is she'ein mechaprin. The sharayim are not there to give you a kapara. That's a zrikas. And yet to unin yisaid, we still demand that what? It has to be davka or yisaid. Is tchilas oila, the first zrikas shemechaperes. That's what your whole kapar is. Surely ain't addition to the yisaid. Surely needs a yisaid. Simple. Rabbi Kiva says the same thing, but he adds 2 words. Oh, Rabbi Kiva, ma shiraim. Same thing. I don't need a pasuk for that, and that's why I know mizbeach oila is not coming to tell you the zrikas of the oila which sides to do it. It's coming to tell you all kabbanas the shiraim goes to the side. Rabbi Kiva says this is the kabbalah chaymer. Ma shirayim she'ein mechapin, and they don't do kapara. Furthermore, the ein boyin likapara. What is he adding here? And they don't come to do a kapara. To una yisai, we'll see in the Gemara soon. Tchilas oila shemechaperes ubal kapara. The beginning, which comes to kaperes, and boloila ein adin. Surely shatuna yisai needs a yisai. When you 4 must be 10 yisaid l'mizbech that we're not talking about the carbon oila, we're talking about the mizbeach of the oila. And what about the mizbeach of the oila? That this yisaid is a din for kol kabbanos on this mizbeach. Amamar. Let's go through the verse now. It says upon yisaid the mizbeach below. You said the second part. I'm going to tell you that what? Why does it say again? Below yisaid. They tell you that the in mizbeach has no yisaid. Anyone maybe hamabayla legufay. The first pasuk, maybe you need. You tell me the first one. You tell me is that you say mizbeach ha'olah, you say mizbeach ha'pnimi. that there is a sorry. The first pasuk can tell you Pashat that this carbon, even though you do zrikas inside, the shirayim you do it on the outside. So you want Haino, maybe you tell me that the inner kabbanas, all the spraying have to be in outer kabbanas. Maybe you needed legufe. Maybe come and tell you that what. That what? Not just come and tell you that you have to do it on the outer mizbeach. Come and tell you that even on the outer mizbeach, if you did it as kosher. If you did it on the inner mizbeach, for sure it's kosher. You did the zrikas there. Of course you can do it. How do you know that this first pasuk is come and tell you that all the zrika, all the shvicha has to be shiraim, has to be done on the mizbeach? Maybe it's telling you that's also kosher. Maybe that what that if you didn't in mizbeach, kosher kavachem is good enough. That you do the zrikas, even now mizbeach. Anybody can be, because that we know Masha Pesach Oil Moyed Nafka. It says over there, it could have just said that you say Mizbech. Why is it say Mizbech Oil? Once you tell us Pesach Oil Moyed, we know what that is. It's the outside Mizbech, obviously. It can be the inner Mizbech. It's on the Pesach Oil, the opening. So the outer Mizbech. Why do you spell out Mizbech Oil? We know Mizbech Oil, Pesach is the same thing. To tell you that only there and not on the inner one. Okay. So that's how we know that these kabbanas, the premium, only can be done the shvich on the outside. Fine. Then you go right. The second pasuk was so we said, what's this pasuk for? It's extra. Is 10 yisoid limizbeach shel oila. I want that give a yisoid to mizbeach shel oila. You said that this is to teach that all kabbanas are coming here. That all kabbanas, what do you call it? You do the shiraim on the east side. The Isagadata could exceed if you're going to say the way it's written, that what? That we're not talking about korbanos, we're talking about the mizbech of the oil itself that you put outside. Ani lamali kra. What do you need a pasuk for? The shirayim habraya below. You need to tell me that what? That you should put it out of bech. Maybe you just need to tell you that every carbon you put it out of bech. Why would you think differently? You sprayed. When it comes to the kabbanas, you sprayed on the inner of the berg. I understand why you need to tell me you do it out of the berg. It's a chiddush. But if the chatchila, all these other kabbanas, the zrikas you did the chatchila and the outer mizbech, why would you think that you do it anywhere else the shvicha other than the inner mizbech? No, why not? Maybe you think that everything is the converse. You want to get all the mizbechas involved. The haraya, the inner, those kabbanas you did in the inner mizbech, you sprinkled in the out, the sharaim you did in the outer mizbech. So maybe the kabbanas you did the zik on the outer one, we would have thought that the sharaim should go on the inner one. So maybe that's what the pasuk is here for. Just like the inner kabbanas, you spring on the inner mizbech, and what do you do with the sharaim? Dafka on the outer. So we would have thought that the outer mizbech, that you sprinkle the outer, maybe dafka the shirayim should be in the inner. We want to get both mizbechas involved in every carbon. The harayah, the inner, we do it outside. Maybe forget. So therefore, that's why we need a legufe. I know it's extra to teach you all kabbalas. Maybe we're just talking about mizbech. Maybe we're just talking about the carbon. We kritem the apvich mevich, the broy the gavoy lebroy that you swap it around. It can't be. We just learned from the second pasuk that there is no base in the inner mizbech. We're gonna pour it down which she said. So therefore, it couldn't have been a half minute. So it's extra. So it can't be describing the mizbech. So what's it talking about? Kabbanas. That all the kabbanas, even though the Torah doesn't mention it, what do you do with the shiraim? You pour it down the side. Or maybe it says in the Braise. Maybe that they come to tell you that Mizbeach Shel Oila should have a Yisoid. Now what? That you should sprinkle with the Yisoidis on the two sides. Meeks, if that's, in other words, when you do a carbon oil, it should be on the, when you do kabbanas, you sprinkle it on the sides with the Yisoid. Not talking about the Shiraim. Talking about it can't be. Meeksiva Yisoid Oila, Yisoid Mizbeach Oila. What do you mean? If we're talking about to do the corners, which carbon are we talking about? You cannot be talking about only corners that have a yisoid in the bottom. It cannot be talking about carbon chatas. Because carbon chatas you have to do in every keren. So whether you like it or not, you have to do it also on the side there's no yisoid. So obviously you're talking about a carbon oila. So if you're talking about carbon oila, why mention mizbeach at all? Just say yisoid or oila. Sprinkle the thing with the yisoidas. So we're not talking about the carbon, we're talking about the mizbeach of the oila. What? All other kabbanas have to be there. Maybe if it would have said Yisoida Oila have a mina, I would have thought it couldn't. You know what? We're talking about sprinkling on the corners. But who said we're talking about all the kabbalah? We're talking about the Oila. Sprinkling on the corners where the Yisoid is. So how come it says Mizbeach Oila, not just Yisoida Oila? Because I would have thought if it said Yisoida Oila, Biskifel She Yisoid, that you can pour it anywhere in the Mizbeach, including the vertical side of the base as well. Comes to tell you that on top of the Yisoid, you do it on the corners, but the blood then runs down, and it runs down to the gag of the Yisoid. Omer Rabbi Shmuel said, Gag Yisoid Lomeli Kra Kal V'Chaymerhu. It's a Kal V'Chaymer, right? So we said that, this is the next part. We said you don't need a pasuk for the... that you don't need a pasuk with it because the kavachayma, anyway, that you can put the shiraim, that the zrikas, you don't need a pasuk. I'm going to ask a question. Maybe you need a pasuk to tell you about how you sprinkle it in the opposite of the kronos, and you need all this, and why you say mizbeach to tell you it shouldn't be on, it should be on the gaga top of your side, not on the sides. So the Gemara says, Rabbi Shmuel Kibo say, for that you don't need to tell me the initial zrikas have to be with the yisoid. I don't need a pasuk by a noila because mother the shirayim end up in the yisoid. Surely the most important part should be where the yisoid is, right? So therefore you don't need a pasuk. So what's the pasuk for? Must be to tell you, not describing them as be'ech. It's talking about all other kabbanis. What do you do with the shirayim of their blood? You pour it down on them as be'ech. Now what's this kavachayim? And don't tell me that I need this pasuk to tell me regarding oilers initial zrikas where they should be on the corners of mizbeach above the Yisoid, because that's a kavachayim. What's a kavachayim? Rabbi Shmuel, Gag Yisoid. Let me grab a pasuk. Kavachayim. Ma shiyorichat mother the shirayim. She'ena mechaperes mother the shirayim, which is not mechaper yet. To unagag Yisoid has to be above the Yisoid. What do you do with the shirayim? You pour it on top of the Yisoid. So tchilas oilish mechaperes. The first zikas, which does the whole kapara, einadin shetuuna gag Yisoid. It has to be where there's the Yisoid, and it has to be at top of the Yisoid. In other words, even on the walls, go on top of the Yisoid because it runs down and it lands on top of the Yisoid. Yeah, so that's what Rabbi Shmuel said, and Rabbi Akiva said. Rabbi Akiva said the same thing, but he adds a word. Ma shiarichatas, ma shiarichatas she'ein mechaper is not mechaper. The ein boy mechaper. It's not mechaper, nor does it come to be mechaper. To a gag yisoid, the shiraim needs a gag yisoid. The beginning of the first zikas, shemechaperes, it does it, and ubal lechaper. Surely you have to do it. Which corner is the ones that you say? So what's the difference? So why does it say in pasuk 10 yisoid limizbeach shalayla? Give the din of yisoid on this mizbeach to all kabbanis. That's what we said before. Is my benayu. What's the difference between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Shmuel? Same kavachayim, but Rabbi Akiva adds two words: boy lechaper or ain't boy lechaper. What does it mean? The machlekes is shirayim ma'akve ike ben. We had it before. Machlekes is whether the shirayim actually, if you don't do it, is ma'akev. He holds, in other words, ma'asava ma'akve. Rabbi Shmuel holds, even though that it definitely it's not a kapara, but it's still ma'akev. In svara, what does that mean? If it's not a kapara, so why is it ma'akev? So what it sounds like it means is the four zikas, the zikas you do on top is the kapara, but that won't take an effect until the rest of that blood you pour it down. So there's a
completion of the avodah.
Exactly. So of that avodah of the zrika. So the zrika does this is what Rabbi Shmuel learns. The zrika does the kapara. The zrika does the kapara on the kronos, and the shirayim is not, but it's part of the zrika. So even though it doesn't do the kapara, it's ma'akiv the zrika from doing his job. Oh, what means ma'akiv? Umar Savar and Rabbi Akiva holds like ma'akiv at all. It's not a kapara nor is a ma'akiv. If the whole blood spilled out, you don't have any. Doesn't matter. You still do the kapara. Zayt kazach. And then our Papa has another shot which goes on to tomorrow, deep in tomorrow's Gemara. So we continue tomorrow, Mitzvah Shem.